One of the hardest things to do in the influencer world or the esports world, when you're trying to get money in and make this a full-time living, is actually figuring out how much to charge for a sponsorship. So sponsorship is one of, if you watch my previous videos, one of the largest revenue sources for an influencer, for an esports team, for a lot of projects within the esports world, because esports brings great numbers, but also how do you monetize that? And that's often through sponsorships or ads through YouTube and other aspects. So let's talk about how we actually measure that. So there's a really key thing today we're going to talk about is CPM value. So we've got CPM and there's also a thing called RPM. These are key features that you'll have to learn if you want to be charging money for sponsorships or growing your business as a whole. So CPM is cost per milli. So what does that mean? That basically means a cost per 1,000 views, essentially. And this one, RPM, means revenue per milli. These are often the same thing. So in some scenarios, you need to know both. In some scenarios, you just need to know CPM. CPM, if you're going for a sponsorship, is essentially what you need to know because there's no middle person. If you're on, for example, YouTube and you put a video out and it gets 100,000 views and you've got a CPM of, let's say, £10 or something. If you had 100,000 views at a CPM of £10, you get £1,000 revenue, but actually YouTube takes their cut and you'll get the revenue per milli, which would then be, say, £500, for example. So let's look at what affects CPM. So when you're actually pitching for a sponsorship, there are a number of things that affect CPM and how you price it, essentially. The CPM can range from 5p up to, it could be hundreds of pounds. So we could even go like £200 here at the absolute extremes for like cost per 1,000 views. It just depends on a number of these factors. So I'm going to list out all the factors which I think will affect the CPM value. And essentially, if you've got them all, you could be charging that really like high value CPM because it's really important to the person you're marketing for. So let's start off by your standard ones. So it depends where you're advertising. So is it like a passive logo, for example? So a passive logo could be something like on a jersey, you'd have like a logo here, for example. That could be a passive logo. How much is that worth? It's definitely worth something, but might not be worth as much as something like an ad reel or something. So if you were to do, for example, an ad reel where you're talking 30 seconds just about a product, I'm talking about these amazing Logitech headsets that I've got, and you go on and on about the exact detail of what they do, and your market is like really interested in that, and you're selling a product exactly, that's worth more than just a logo, for example, of Logitech right there. So that is definitely how it changes. And then you've also got stuff like a niche market. So this is a big indicator as well. So a niche market means that, again, if we take the example of controllers, for example, here. So let's say we have Scuff as a sponsorship who do controllers. Where do they want to market? Do they want to market at to a foodie, or do they want to market to someone who plays Rocket League and Call of Duty because all the players in that usually use controllers? So if you've got a Rocket League professional or influencer who is using a Scuff controller, and it shows off the controller nicely to their audience, they're more likely to buy from that audience. So it's a niche market essentially that they're hitting at. So what else have we got? We've got ease of advertising, so link sharing. Let's put link sharing there. There's often times when you're doing sponsorships where, for example, TikTok can be not great sometimes at link sharing because it doesn't like you to move out the platform, whereas YouTube can be really good because you can have it in the description and people can just click off. So how easy is it to share your link? In an Instagram story, for example, you can have a link right there and people can click off, and it can be quite good as well. So depending on how much you charge can also depend on how easy it is for the person to actually buy the product. Sometimes it's just brand awareness and seeing the eyeballs of the actual logo and understanding who they are, but sometimes they need to actually get a sale afterwards to get an ROI. So that can also matter as well. We've then got, moving on to, there's one called Prestige. So this could also be the link of, say, for example, pro player winning, something like this. So a lot of people actually like to be known as, associated with winning teams or winning mentality or something. And for example, if you're a pro team pitching for a sponsorship, you can sometimes charge more because it's that if someone links themselves to Man United or something, probably a bad example, Man City or Barcelona or Real Madrid, these clubs have that kind of winning mentality. And if you've got a sponsorship, that any brands associated with them are also kind of seen as a winning brand, which generally can charge a higher CPM. So what else we've got? We've got demand, or you could say demand, or even, I guess this is demand for your channel. So let's do demand your channel. So this basically means if you've got tons of people coming for you for sponsorships and you can only do so many in a video, you could up your prices and, have a bit of a demand. If you only got 4 slots on your jersey, where the sponsors go, and you've got 3 of them sold and you've got 3 companies coming at you for offers, that's demand and you can up your prices. So that's also important. We then we move on to kind of Evergreen, I think is a really interesting one. So let's say on your social media posting content and it's a short form piece of content, often that's a post it and it'll do well once. You can get Evergreen short form, but for long form, it can be easier for this. So let's take 2 examples of Evergreen long form and not Evergreen. So if we were to post, for example, a fun piece of content with hot sauce video, with like how hot can an influencer drink it, that's probably not Evergreen content. And that kind of content will get seen, pushed by the algorithm at the start, and you'll get a certain amount of views and then it'll die. Whereas if we did a video on, let's talk about these videos, an esports university, these kind of videos can last in YouTube's algorithm, in my opinion, for years to come. This could be still relevant for the next 5 years, and the video could go up for the 5 years as evergreen content. So if someone was to sponsor you on day 1 for that video, you might not get the views at first, but you could also get continued viewership and click-through and buying at a future date. So you might charge more for that because you can only charge on, I think we're going to get 1,000 views or 10,000 views in the first 30 days, but actually in 5 years, we might have 100,000 views and they'll still reap the benefits. So that's quite an interesting one to go for. We then move on to cost of product. So this is more who you're advertising, but let's just take an example of, if you're advertising a graphics card, for example, for NVIDIA, as an example, that could be £1,000 graphics card. So actually, all they need to sell for, let's say you're charging them £1,000 for the video, they might only need to sell 1 or 2 of those to be profitable, or not even profitable, 2 of them to be profitable. But if someone buys an NVIDIA graphics card from you and it costs £1,000, yes, the cost of sale will be there, but actually you might have just bought a lifetime NVIDIA user, so they'll buy from you in the future as well. So they might only need one sale for that. Whereas if you were to have a £10 product, or even let's say Snickers, for example, let's say I have a £1 Snickers or £2 Snickers bar or something, they might need to sell 500 of those to actually make it worth it. Okay, so moving on to that, we've then got market competition. This is quite an important one as well. So market competition is an interesting one. Let's take the example of AMD and Intel, okay? So with, let's say with CPUs, there's 2 big front runners right now. There's AMD and Intel. So if you were to take a sponsorship from one of them, let's say you took a sponsorship from AMD, you can't take a sponsorship from Intel often, which means, let's say you had them both coming at you, you can play them off against each other as market competition, because let's say you're a really good kind of like thought leader within that industry that they need to sell in, and there's not many people for that. Let's say you're a bit of a niche creator as well, and the demand for your channel is really high. Market competition is really important because AMD and Intel might think, I need to get that person, even if it's not completely, positive ROI, it will stop my competitor getting them as well. And I need to think about the future of the customer for this as well. So then market competition is a really important one. And then with that, you got exclusivity. So exclusivity is often clauses in a contract for a sponsorship, which means you can't advertise similar brands or competitor brands within a certain time period or at all, really. So let's just take that example we just said with AMD and Intel. AMD have just, let's say, sponsored us for a video. It might say in that clause that we can't take any competitors for the next 3 or 6 months. So even if, let's say that one video I said charged them like £2,000 for, as an example, for AMD, but I can't advertise Intel for 6 months and then Intel want to give me more money, that's a really awkward situation to be in because they basically blocked off your market. So unless you've got tons of markets you can sell to, sometimes you really need to think about exclusivity, because you might have some perfect partners for you, but you can't work with them. So that's a really important one. This generally is what CPM will be based off. So it's a lot of factors to think of. But let's say you've got, in a partnership package, you've got some logo placement, you've got some ad reels, you've got a niche market which people need to hit for your thing. You can share links and show an ROI. You've got that prestige of people want to work with you. You've got demand on your channel. Some of your videos are evergreen and people could be, they go with you once and they can, skyrocket for the future. The cost of the product is generally quite high as a good thing. There's some tough market competition where there's lots of competitors in there which are really trying to get the same customers. And you've got exclusivity in there as a contract. Let's say you had all of these things, you can charge a really high CPM. But generally a CPM will be, let's say for YouTube, might be around the £20 mark or something. 20 to 25 is a YouTube. It's quite standard. And then for shorts, this could vary massively. Also, depending on how easy it is to share, it could be as low as the 5p you'd get as an ad revenue to, it could be £3, £4, £5 or something, maybe £5 as an absolute max. So maybe 5p to £5. Very wide range there, but it does vary a lot on what you can actually charge to what you're actually doing as a product. In some sponsorship deals and how much you charge, there can also be another thing called affiliate marketing. So you could have a CPM rate base plus affiliate as an example as well. So let's say you wanted to charge, I only want to charge a £10 CPM. I'm going to be really low and nice, but I also want plus 30% of sales. This can be a really interesting way of doing it, and it can be a win-win sometimes for the businesses you work with. But this might also be 10%, it might be 20%, it might be even more than that. It kind of depends on the product for this. If you're advertising, say, like a software business, that can be quite high because the cost can be quite low for the customer. Whereas if you're advertising PC parts, that can be really low because it could be 1 or 2% or 5% because the margins can be a bit tighter. So this can be a really interesting way of doing it and almost like a win-win. You can try and prove kind of an ROI with your sales as well, which is a great way of doing it. And then a lot of sponsorships will just go to you, I want affiliate only. Affiliate only. My advice on this is if it's the first time you've ever done a sponsorship, it can be worth doing to take it as a case study only to show what you can do in the future. Otherwise, there's not much point in taking affiliate money. You're not going to make a ton of money from affiliate money. And if you could make a ton of money from affiliate money, you could have charged for it. So I'd be very careful with that. And again, when we talk about some of these factors of how much you charge, market competition, exclusivity, all these factors, making yourself tied off for an affiliate deal is never normally worth it. So hopefully that gives you an understanding of how you charge for a sponsorship. I know I haven't gone into exact examples of how much you should charge for a certain thing, but if you take a look at what you're selling as a product, that could be yourself or that could be a business, have a look at all of these factors and see whether you can come up with a number which you think is fair to charge to customers. And that also allows you, if someone ever questions it, to justify why you charge that amount. Cool. So if you like these videos, we're doing an esports university. We're doing lots of different kind of subjects within esports and creator economy and so on, and marketing. If that's what you're interested in and you want to find what your niche is within those markets, I advise you watch the videos, see what you like, and then niche down and master that thing if you want a career within the industry. Sub if you like it, and I'll catch you in the next one.